everybody. It's Rob again. It's time for another Member Talks. This one's going to be a lot of fun because we are with a person from New Jersey. Her name is Ruthann Disotell. Hi, Ruthann. How are you today?
I'm good. Yeah, it's Disotell, not Datotell.
So I did get it right. Disotell.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I love that. Disotell, not Datotell. Ruthann, what a pleasure to get you on here. I first became acquainted with you, kind of long distance, I guess you could say. I ran into oak tags, which we'll get into here in a little bit, at NFDA, and it really kind of struck me as this is kind of a pretty neat idea that you've got going on there. And I've been trying to, or I should say try, and I've been wanting to try to reach out to you because first off, I wanted to say thank you because I received, and I gotta show this to everybody because this is so cool. This is why you go and meet new people at conventions. This was a free gift that I received from Oak Tags. It's a camouflage charger. It's what is that? It's charged by the sun. Solar charger. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Yeah, it was so cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That was really neat.
You were one of the lucky drawings. Yeah.
Well, I was excited because I won the year before. I won a bottle of wine and a marble wine chiller, which one was very hard to bring home from Chicago in my suitcase because it was marble and it weighed about 30 pounds.
Yes.
But I don't drink wine, so I gave it to my wife and she enjoys it. But this is something really cool that I can enjoy. So thank you.
I'm so glad you've been using it. That's wonderful. I need to get myself one.
Yeah.
I gave them all away.
Well, Ruthann, I was really grateful that this February came around because we were featured in the American Funeral Director magazine, but look who's on the cover of that magazine. It's Ruthann Disotell. And
they couldn't get Chris Brinkley.
Well, it was so cool because we were excited to get it because we had actually done a podcast a couple weeks ago where we recorded Stan interviewing us for the article. And so we kind of got to see it from both sides. But I didn't realize that you were going to be on the cover and the feature story. So when that came out, I was super excited because I thought this is my opportunity now to definitely reach out once again and see if we can get you to come on. So I'm glad you were able to join us and we're excited. We want to hear all about Oak Tags here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, what an amazing opportunity to get on the American Funeral Director magazine. I just was floored when they contacted me and wanted to do a feature article. So yeah, it's hard to be humbled and jazzed at the same time.
Well, you're definitely deserving of it. You're definitely deserving. It's a wonderful, wonderful article. And if you haven't seen it or you haven't read it yet, definitely either download it or get the magazine, read the article. It is a great article about you. Let's talk a little bit about you, though, while we begin. Now, you've got kind of a long history of being around funeral service. You grew up in a funeral home.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I did. I grew up over a funeral home, over two funeral homes, actually. Dad had one in Morristown, New Jersey, and then he opened a second location in Lakehurst, New Jersey. So we spent my younger years in Morristown, and then sophomore year of high school, I hopped over to the other one. And it was an interesting experience to grow up in a funeral home. It was home to me. Everybody else, it was like, you live in a funeral home. Aren't you scared? Truthfully, I wasn't scared until junior high when I started watching Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Yeah.
But, before then, not a problem at all. And after that, it just took a little while to train myself to understand that the only people who ever hurt me in my entire life were living.
Yeah.
So I've never been afraid of the dead. They were just people we took care of.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's great. And then you, like a lot of people that kind of grow up in something, doing something, kind of came to the decision that wasn't what you were going to do and kind of went off and did other things, but then came back to funeral service?
Well, I went to school to be an art teacher.
Yeah.
My original plan was to make great chocolate chip cookies and join the PTA. I was just going to have a boatload of kids and be a great mom. And Dad said, I really want you to have a career that you can fall back on if, God forbid, anything happens to your husband, that you would have a way to make an income.
Sure.
And I thought, oh, what could I possibly do? And I enjoyed art class, and I thought teach the world how to draw a face. And I started studying art. And into my freshman year, I got through one semester, but I took a break. I had a week off, and I hitched a ride with a girlfriend down to Dallas from Tulsa. And my brother was at Dallas Institute at the time. And I played mom to him for a week, cooking and cleaning. And one day he went off to school, and I found a Bible on the coffee table and started thumbing through it. Where do you start reading the Bible, right? Yeah. So I'm flipping through it, and I come to Ecclesiastes, and I thought, that's a very beautiful name. So I'll read out of that book. And sure. I never start at the beginning of anything. So I picked lucky number 7. And the first verse talks about the value of a good reputation. And then it starts talking about how the house of mourning is better than the house of feasting. Sorrow is better than laughter. For sorrow has a refining influence on us. It is good to think about death while there is still time. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? Because I just came from school and all of my courses had flipped on me. I was studying humanities, but not humanitarians, how they died. Okay. And I was studying English, and we were doing poetry. All the poems were about death. Art history, Michelangelo's Death of a Virgin. Gym class, I was taking a modern dance course. They put me in the group to interpret death to music. I mean, like, what's going on here? And then I get this scripture passage, and I said, I give up. And I picked up the phone and called Dad. And he almost had a coronary on the other end of the phone, because I am not the one that you would have picked. Yeah. He had 7 kids. I'm not the one. And I ended up finishing up my 60 credits that I needed in New Jersey to go to mortuary school. Started out in New York at American Academy, and became disheartened because the information was delivered really quickly there. And they had a system where if you failed a test, you were out of school. So it was very hard and fast. Yeah. And I was going to just give up. And Dad said, no, let me call Dallas, where David went, and see if we can get you in there. And so mid-year, I transferred there and finished up with a draw, because I talked too fast for Dallas. And by the time I got out of Dallas, I talked too slow for New Jersey. It was just really hard. But they were wonderful. And that was when the school was over by Baylor Hospital. So it was a lot smaller back then. And it was called Dallas Institute of Mortuary Science at that time.
Right.
So I'm real old school. Yeah. But it was a wonderful thing, because the longer I was in that path, the more I understood why I was supposed to be in the path. Because the more comfortable I felt being in that career. Yeah. I'm in love with the grieving family. I want to be with them. And this was great, because I took what I was going to do with portrait art and transposed it onto the dead. Sure. And I can paint and sculpt a dead person to look like they're healthy.
Yeah.
And it's very rare to get somebody to be a rock star in a casket, but if you can make them look healthy, at least the family's saying goodbye to somebody that doesn't look like they're dying. Right.
Yeah. No, and it's a very rare art form to have that ability to do that, for sure.
Yeah.
So you were actually, when they say you're called to this profession, you actually pretty much were. It sounds like everything was lining up for you to say, hey, guess what? We've got a profession for you that you can spend your lifetime in.
Right. There are a lot of people now that talk about it being a ministry. Mm-hmm. For me, it's been a ministry decades.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for a very long time. It's a matter of I think we're all put on the planet to take care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're just given different assignments. And this one is mine.
Sure.
That I minister to the grieving people in the world and help them to get from point A to point B in one piece.
Yeah.
And I feel extremely humbled and honored when they give me the privilege of carrying their heart for them for a few days while they get through that process. So
well, that's a great testimony to share. And it's definitely one that, we hear a lot of, why did you get into the profession? Well, to help people, but you really put it in great terminology that you really are there to help and to share your heart with them.
Yes.
Oh,
it's been a wonderful career, and it's changed and flipped a few different times, but it's always been around taking care of the grieving family.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's mention that. It has changed, it sounds like, from what I know about you. You've designed a funeral home, built a funeral home, owned a funeral home. You're a life celebrant, and now you've come up with oak tags as well. And before we get into that,
I'm like the queen of reinvention, right?
There you go. And I do want to talk about oak tags because I'm really impressed with it. But I want to briefly touch on life celebrant. Because and something, if I can, just for a minute, if I could read just a quote from your article, because this really caught my attention. And I think maybe it was because of the way you said it. We talk about, people, at least out here where we're at, out west, we don't like to refer to funerals. We call them life celebrations for the most part. People are kind of still have that reluctancy to call it what it is, a funeral.
Yes.
And that's fine, so be it. But you are a life celebrant, not a funeral celebrant.
Right.
And before we get into why there's a distinction there, I think it kind of goes in with this section of your article here. And I'd like to read it real quick. It says, somewhere we started calling it a celebration, but it's been misconstrued by some to mean a party. And this is what caught my attention. Most families want to hear good things, but honest things. They want the world to know that this person's life made an impact on the earth and those in the room in particular. If religion is important to them, by all means, include those rites, readings, and prayers. But many are just in need of a sense of community, to be surrounded by others who know things are changed by death of this, by the death of this person. That's really a great way to look at it. That's really a great way to put it. I guess it really doesn't matter if you call it a funeral or a celebration or a party or whatever. The reality is people need to have that sense of community, that sense of gathering,
Yes.
To heal. And so as funeral providers, it's really our duty to offer that and to have that availability. It doesn't have to be religious. It can be. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a party. It can be just a quiet gathering. It can be anything that we make it. But I think it's very important that we make that offering and not just jump immediately to I don't want to have anything, or just, we hear a lot of times out here, just cremate me.
Right.
And I think that's where we've missed the boat. So I really love how you put it in words there, to talk about the fact that it is how it moves to that healing aspect of how do we get there. And it's through community, it's through gathering, it's through being with each other.
Yes.
Tell me, what is a life celebrant? Because that's not what we hear about here, but tell us what a life celebrant is.
Well, I went to training with a bunch of people that were called funeral celebrants, but I don't celebrate a funeral. I celebrate a life. Yeah. So I coined the term life celebrant, and I feel very comfortable with that. I think it's more authentic to who I am. I do religious services for people that want them. I've done full gospel services. I'm fortunate that I have that in my life, that I can share that with people if they need it. Yeah. But I don't force my belief system on anyone else. I did a funeral yesterday for a fellow that didn't do church and didn't really profess to have any relationship of any kind with God.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a very big relationship with beer. So we talked about beer and the Rod and Gun Club and NASCAR. I mean, those were things that he loved. And he loved his friends, and he had a tap on a fridge in the garage, and everybody came over Thursday and Saturday night, and they would drink beer until dawn and just tell bad jokes. You know, he loved spicy jokes. Now, if you thought of this guy and you were talking about funeral, everybody would be scratching their head, because when we say funeral, we usually think of something formal.
Right.
We think of something staid. And there was nothing formal or staid about this guy. But we had an honest reflection on his life. I interviewed the family over the phone, which is also not average. Most celebrants will go to the family home and sit in the living room and be circled by the family, and the quiet person in the family will say something. I remember the time when, and then the strong person in the family, oh yeah, I remember that. Blah, 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 blah. And this person just kind of like slithers away, and you never hear from them. So I call each individual immediate family member and stay on the phone with them as long as they need to be on the phone.
Okay.
And for some people, that's 10 minutes. But I had one person that needed to be on the phone for 2.5 hours.
Really?
And he was older than his brother who died. Right. And the evening of the service, he sat in the front row with his cane and his hanky. And he had Parkinson's, and he just was sitting there, and he was shaking and mopping his brow once in a while. And we got through the service, and his wife came up to me after the service, and she says, I want to thank you for being on the phone with my husband last night. You gave him permission to cry.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, that's why I'm doing this. That's why, because people need permission, you know, and it's an amazing thing. And to sit with be with those people yesterday for that service, and to give them permission to feel what they felt about their buddy who died, but to be real and in the moment with them about who he was. I mean, I interviewed the family, and then I cleaned it up so that it could be in mixed company, you know. But it was wonderful to finish the funeral with a polka. There's no beer in heaven. It's like, it's a great polka. Look it up on YouTube. I love it. But there's no beer in heaven. We're drinking it here, you know. And when we're gone, our friends will be drinking the beer, you know. But it's a cute little ditty. But it was so true to who this guy was. We couldn't do Go Rest High on That Mountain with this guy. No, it would not have been appropriate. And I just want people to have what's appropriate for them. So that's a special thing.
Well, it definitely is something that I've been around enough funerals to know that you've got to make it a personalized experience as much as possible. Yeah. Cookie cutter funerals are, pardon the pun, are what's killing the funeral industry, is doing the same funeral over and over again, just insert name here style funeral. It doesn't have to be that way. No, and it's not that difficult to make it a unique experience. It's not that difficult. You know, you said you talk to each family member independently on the phone. That takes a little bit of time, but really time is what we have. So, you know, that's the easy stuff. So it sounds like what you're doing is just a wonderful experience for the families you're serving over there.
The neat thing about it is during the service, we experience what I call the popcorn effect, because the family doesn't know what the other people in the family have told me. So they hear things that they told me, and then they hear other things, and it's like, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, remember that? and it's so much fun to watch them retrieve their joy.
Yeah.
You know, they've spent so much time at the deathbed praying for this person and counting on the doctors and just carrying this huge burden. And they're weary. And to give them the gift of their joy back, to take them from the deathbed and carry them back in time to when they were happy and when this person was vibrant, you know, and it's gold. It's just a marvelous thing to give somebody. And if it happens at your funeral home, then your funeral home is where great funerals happen.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary, you should have been there. You know, ABC Funeral Home does the best.
Right.
You know, oh my gosh. And they're not talking about me. They're talking about the funeral home, which is great. I'm fine with that, you know, but it's like, it's great for the funeral home to have a reputation for bringing good funerals to the family. And there are lots of components to that, but a large component of that is the service itself. You know, I'm all about the viewing. So the body, the appearance of the deceased is really big with me as well.
Sure.
With restorative art and all that. I mean, like, I am very much into giving somebody a good picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so the picture is really good, but the sound is really important too. The sound of what you're offering is important.
Well, that's what they remember. You know, they remember seeing the person for sure. But what they really remember is, do you remember when the Life Celebrant brought up such and such from 20 years ago? I would have never have thought of that. And keeping those memories, talking and communicating with family members is what keeps that individual person alive. Yeah. And keeps that spirit alive, and sharing those stories. So, yeah, that's a great way to do it. That's a great way to do it. I'm excited. I'm excited. It's refreshing, actually, to me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears on you again. I know you are out in New Jersey.
Yes.
You're in a different part of New Jersey than, at least, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but for at least what I think of New Jersey, you're in a completely separate area of New Jersey. You're not in the big city. You're not in the concrete jungle, as we hear. But you are in a market, I guess we could call it, an area, a geographical area that's really been hit very difficult with the pandemic, with where we're at. And I don't want to make this a pandemic episode, but I want to touch on it a little bit to kind of get a feel for what's happening out in your area, because I can tell you what's happening in our area, and we can share that. And we've done that in the past, but I kind of want to hear from other parts of the country and how things are going there. So can you give us just a little example of what's happening? Well, first off, tell us where you're at and why I say you're not in that concrete jungle, but tell us kind of what's experiencing in New Jersey right now.
Well, I'm not where the pandemic was hit hard. I'm on a side of a mountain in the northwestern part of the state, and where there are bumps in the terrain. It's certainly not a mountain like you would think of when you think of mountain, but in New Jersey, it's a mountain. And I have no visible neighbors, a babbling brook down on the roadway, and a pond in my side yard that the deer come and drink from, and we have a visiting bear. So we have wildlife, and down the road we have corn farms and people raising sheep and cow, so I'm in a more farmy kind of neighborhood, and which is great.
Why they call it the Garden State?
Yeah, we still have some garden in this part of the state. There's a lot of the state that's been developed, and so be it. And the places that are highly developed, the places that are citified, that are in the northern part of the state especially, really got hit hard by COVID. Across the road from New York, what are you going to do?
Sure.
So those places were inundated. April and May, our death rate in New Jersey was more than 3.5 times what it was the year before.
Wow.
And granted, we expect to have a fluctuation in the death rate, but that was remarkable.
Sure.
And my colleagues were just scampering and trying to figure out how to make things happen for families. Mm-hmm. Some were turning families away, and like, what funeral home does that?
Yeah.
But you can only hold so many people in your funeral home until their service time or until they can go to the crematory. And here in New Jersey, we don't have crematories at funeral homes. We have to go to cemeteries or privately owned crematories, and they were backed up 3 weeks. So you're holding somebody for 3 weeks, and that's a problem. And then if you're having services, you're holding casketed remains in line for their service. It just was like factory kind of feeling. Very hard to be able to give a family what you would normally give them because you're just totally exhausted.
Sure.
And your resources are different. When pandemic hits, there are a lot of people in the industry who stop and rethink if this is for them.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some funeral directors decided, I didn't sign up for this. and they changed the dynamic in the funeral home. Right. Because then there are less funeral directors to take care of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then you're switching from in-person arrangements to doing arrangements over the phone and doing DocuSign or HelloSign or whatever it is you want to do to get those documentations taken care of. And it's hard. Mm-hmm. And you have COVID families, you picked up somebody who died of COVID, and their family knows that COVID was in the house, and they don't want you to come to the house to do arrangements, and they don't want to come to the funeral home and give anything to you. And then you have other people who are sitting in front of you, and their husband's been in the hospital fighting COVID for 2 months, and they haven't seen their husband for 2 months. And now they're sitting in front of you wearing a mask, socially distanced, with tears in their eyes, and you're telling them they can't have what they would normally have.
Yeah.
And you want to hug them. And it just changes who you are as a funeral director, because you're so used to being tactile, I am anyway, I'm a hugger,
Yeah.
And it was devastating to have to sit back and talk to them hands-free.
Yeah.
It just, it was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I'm glad that now things are calming down a little bit, and we're able to have services again. Now the governor has eased it a little bit so we can have 35% of the capacity of the funeral home for services. And grateful for that. Yeah. It has made it possible for people to think about funerals again, which is an uptick in celebrant work as well.
Sure.
But a lot of funeral homes have gone to live streaming because of the limitations.
Right.
And the thing that I'm trying to get funeral directors to understand is there are wonderful, wonderful videographers out there who do weddings, and weddings are gone.
Yeah.
Those gatherings aren't happening. And you have these very skilled people that can do a dynamic recording for you. And why not hire them to come in and just be a funeral director, please? Don't try to be all things to all people. Everybody's trying to do their own videos.
Yeah.
And you're already worn out. So hire somebody who needs the money to come in and do a service. And I have a couple fellows that I recommend. They can come in, live stream the service. They understand sound and everything, and they can get all the Wi-Fi signals and make sure everything is heard by the people chiming in. And then afterwards, they edit it down because they've had a couple cameras in the room all through the thing.
Right.
Only one has been live streamed, but they've got these other cameras and they can chop it up and make it interesting.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
add in shots of the outside of the funeral home and give you a little bit of advertising, and make a nice package with a little background, soft music,
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
And it
So
doesn't cost a fortune. It's
and it
very
doesn't cost the
inexpensive.
funeral home anything. It costs
Yeah.
the family, and the family's delighted to get it.
Well, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
happy to pay for it.
They've
This
got
is
a
something
tangible thing to share. From
yes,
that.
and this is something that we've got to stop doing. We've got to stop telling people what we offer and ask them what they want.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of people that talk about celebrants. Well, that's so expensive. Not to the family, it isn't. To the
Sure.
family, they're getting something that they really want. And if you're giving them video live streaming with keepsake video, it's something they really want. It's so much above and beyond that loop of pictures that you're putting together for
Yeah.
people to see during visitation. It's got all the stories in it. It's important. And it's medicine.
Yeah.
This is what we don't seem to realize, that the stories are medicine to a grieving heart. And that's why at the end of a celebration, I talk to people about talking about the person that we just celebrated. Say their name. Because we have a tendency to shut up after a funeral,
Right.
and not talk about them because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah.
And we desperately need to stop that. We need to start talking about who died and why they mattered. And that's where the oak tags pin ends up being a tool. This tiny little leaf that represents the one that fell from the family tree. I'm trying to get people to catch on to the idea that if somebody's wearing this leaf and you see them by the frozen food section, say, who's your leaf? And now they have permission, that word again, they have permission to say their loved one's name for the first time since the funeral. And they can tell you as little or as much as you will let them. But if they get to say something, if they get to say the name, just the name alone is fabulous. But if you say, what were they known for? I get to talk about that. What we can give people by unlocking their heart and letting them spill. It's just a wonderful thing. And it's so weird because when I created this pin, I did it to identify family in the funeral home. Because I used to run a Jewish house, and I became very envious of that Kriya ribbon. Because the Kriya ribbon, you look around and the people wearing ribbons, that's family. Good. Right. Now I know who the family is because I met with two people for the arrangements.
Yeah.
And now I see the family. And now my staff sees the family. And they know that if somebody comes up to them and bites their head off about something and they're wearing a ribbon, treat them gently. They're having a bad day.
Yeah.
But I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had something like that? The people that aren't Jewish don't have anything. So I created this pin, and that was for identification, but it has just jumped way out of the box. And families love wearing it because they're wearing their person.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely it does definitely, like you say, it distinguishes who the family is while at the funeral home. But to give that person permission after the funeral to share, to talk, it's such a unique pin, just in the fact that it's an oak leaf, that it draws attention. And what is that about? What is the oak leaf? Because you see people with lapel pins all the time. Usually it's a flag, or it's, something that maybe it's a symbol or an emblem of what they do. But an oak leaf, it makes you ask that question. Well, what does that represent? And just even that question of what does your pin represent opens that door up. I wanted to read real quickly what you received with the oak tag, with the oak leaf pin. It does come with a poem, and the poem is wonderful. It says, "Some leaves wither and fly away, others rip off in a storm. This leaf rests upon my heart to keep your memory warm." And that comes with each one of those pins that the funeral home can provide to the family. Am I accurate in that?
Yeah. So you give everybody a poem card and then ask them if you can pin them. Mm-hmm. I always like to ask them so that there's a snag in the clothing. They gave you permission to put that there. I haven't had any snags yet, but I always want to cover. And then that's a palpable moment when you pin somebody. And that was something I wasn't expecting, because you're reading that poem and it catches them like, oh, and then you ask them if you can pin them. Oh, yeah, okay. And you go to pin them, and then the eyes well up because this is him.
Right.
You know, and there's one widow who every time she touched her pin, she cried. It just, oh, you know, and it's so interesting to see how it affects people.
Yeah.
And then there are some people who are estranged and they don't feel like they should wear the pin. So I take the pin and I punch it through the poem card and give it to them and say, take it home, and then you can wear it when you want, when you feel comfortable. And they're happy to receive it. But it's interesting that the dynamic when they enter the room with the other people and the other people see the pin, and some funeral directors, and I love when this happens because I've started doing this myself. I ask the family, and with your permission, I'm going to put one on your loved one. And then if you see the decedent wearing one and you turn around, you see other people wearing it, the connection happens.
It's that connection, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when other people see that and they realize that the pin has a meaning, then it's like, oh man, I wish I had one for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we developed a gift pin. So this is something that looks like it comes off of a rack in a store.
Sure.
And the front says in memory of, and it has a line, who fell from the family tree. Mm-hmm. And then on the back, it says presented by, and what does that? Yes, a leaf has fallen, but the tree remembers.
Yeah.
And the back of the card tells the story of the pin. I actually found a leaf on the sidewalk, and I thought it looked like a hug. So I turned it into a pin.
Yeah.
So there's the hug, turned into a pin.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's such a great way to memorialize. There was something in your article I saw that made me think, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but it was taking Dad to the stadium for the game. Dad loved going to the game.
Yeah.
How do you do that after Dad's gone? Well, you can wear your pin. Wear your pin, and he's with you. You know, you saw Dad. Dad had the pin on. Your family has the pin on. Everybody's connected in that way. And as you go out into the world, you can take your loved one with you just by simply putting that pin on, wearing that pin. People will ask what the pin represents, and you can tell them. We talked a little bit about, you mentioned briefly about word of mouth advertising for your funeral home. Another great way to advertise for your funeral home. When somebody says, where did you get that? That's a great idea. Well, I got it at XYZ Funeral Home. They gave this to me as a member of the family to be able to remember my loved one with.
Right. And it's not going to run out of ink or expire at the end of the calendar year.
Yes.
It's well spent money. It lasts forever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it will, you know, eventually, you might find that it ends up in the jewelry box, but every time you open the jewelry box, there's the lapel pin. And you can put it on whenever you want to have that special occasion, anniversaries, birthdays, first Christmases, or 20th Christmases of the person being gone. It doesn't matter. Whenever you wear that pin will remind you of your loved one.
This pin has shown up under the boutonniere of a groom so his mom could be at his wedding.
Is that right?
And it's been on a graduation gown because Nana would have been proud.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting, all the places the pin travels. I have one 20-something that took the back off and slapped it into the steering column so that every time he got behind the wheel, he'd see the pin.
Oh, my.
You know, I had one family who got all excited about, oh, this pin is so cool. We all have to get a tattoo right here. It's like, like, I never would have thought of it. I mean,
yeah.
But people love the symbolism of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited because when I was searching for something, I wanted it to be non-denominational, but I also wanted it to be attractive enough for a woman to feel comfortable wearing, right, but handsome enough that a guy would want to wear it. And it's on motorcycle leathers and baseball caps.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes. It goes everywhere. And it's very special. Yeah.
Well, Ruthann, I love it. I really do. And I want to share it out here, out west. Tell us how we can get in touch with you or with Oak Tags to be able to get those brought out to the funeral homes so that we can start giving those out to families. How do we get in touch with you?
Well, I'm easy to get a hold of. You can get a hold of me at Ruthann at oaktags.com. And Ruthann does not have an E. Okay, so it's plain. RUTHANN at Oaktags, OAKTAGS.com. Obviously, okay, that's the website, oaktags.com. Right. Visit it and look around. If you'd like to get access to the wholesale store, you need to get in touch with me so I can give you a password, because we keep that private for people who are in the death care industry.
Yeah.
And we do have some retail sales available on the website for other people who are browsing through, but we do have wholesale available to funeral homes. So we'd love to be able to help you. We have signage for the funeral home where you can let people know at the register stand that you've got something going on. We have condolence cards that you can send for the 1-year anniversary. And we even have a bag card, a colorful card that goes in the family bag that says, "We appreciate you letting us serve you," and a little something about the pin. And when we see you wearing yours, we know you're remembering the one who fell from the family tree. It's just a nice circle of products that bring it home and let people know that you care. And if you're going to call a funeral director, who do you want to call? You want to call somebody who cares.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has really been exciting. I was just interrupted you. I think you were going to say one more thing there.
One more thing. That article that you were talking about is also on my website. You just look under the tab for blog/news, and the news article from the magazine is there on the website. So you can pick it up and check it out and get the rest of the stuff that we didn't talk about, which we talked about a lot of the stuff in the article.
we met a few of those points, but kind of went a different direction too. So that was pretty good. I didn't want to repeat the same questions.
It's all good. They were very generous with me. I just really appreciate the staff there at the magazine with the American Funeral Director.
Yeah.
And I just love the opportunity that they presented for me to be able to get the word out.
Well, it's a great word to get out.
And I thank you. I mean, this is wonderful to be able to spend time with you and have a chat.
Yeah.
And I think our backdrops complement each other, just saying. I'm all about color.
Very similar. Well, Ruthann, what a pleasure to be able to finally talk with you somewhat live and in person via Zoom. One of these days we'll get together live, probably at one of the upcoming conventions.
I hope we get together alive.
Yeah. I want to get some of the Oak Tags out here. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to go on and try to get some into the password protected part. So look for my information coming through, because I want to get some of those out to some folks that I know and be able to provide those. So, but anyway, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's stories like yours that give funeral service the name that we need to have, the name that we deserve, and the name that we really should be known for. And that's caring, serving families. And so it's your stories and stories of thousands and thousands of other funeral providers out there that continue that tradition. And we're just grateful to be a part of the same profession that you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Great. You take care now.
All right. Bye-bye.